Battle CDs are one of the side modes in Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness. Each one is a battling challenge that gives you a fixed set of Pokemon to work with, and most have an intended solution to work out, some of them also featuring a time limit. I like to think of them as like chess puzzles for Pokemon battles. There are 50 Battle CDs, and if you want to know where to find them, I have a separate video detailing that. This video series will be showing off each of the 50 CDs, and how to beat them. I invite you to pause the video before the battle begins and try and figure out the solution yourself before watching. After each Battle CD, I'll be giving an overview of what I feel that Battle CD is designed to teach the player, as many of them are intended to teach you a lesson about otherwise obscure game mechanics or strategies in Pokemon. But it's been a long time since Generation 3, and some of the things these CDs teach you are now outdated, so I'll also be talking about what's changed since then. With that intro out of the way, here we are at the reception counter for Battle CDs in Welcome Tower. It's time to begin our adventure into these 50 battles. Firstly, I should mention that I've gone into Buy Battle CD, and I've bought Battle CDs 2, 3, and 4. They're all available from the start. There will be more Battle CDs available to buy after we clear those 3. Now, I did already complete Battle CD 1 during my main playthrough of this game, so I'll put a link to the video where I did that. However, for completeness sake, I want to show Battle CD 1 here, because I want this series on Battle CDs to be as complete as possible. So our first CD is 1-star difficulty, Flying vs. Flying. You'll want to go and check the Battle CDs before you do them, because unlike a lot of other battling challenges in Pokemon games, you get to see the exact stats of the Pokemon that you're dealing with. Now, the attacking stats probably won't matter all that much, you just need to know which of physical or special attack is better on mixed attackers, and for defenses you might want to know, for example, this Pidgeot is a little weaker to special attacks than it is to physical. That doesn't matter since this Tropius will not be able to hit us on the special side. However, what you do want to pay attention to is speed, because that really matters. Here, Pidgeot is faster than the Tropius, so we will always move first. Also note, this is a single battle with a 2-turn limit, and as you can see, these are the moves we're dealing with, and these are the moves the opponent has. So let's begin. Now, after this, I will be cutting the intro animation from every other Battle CD, because this takes a really long time, and if I showed this intro animation for all of the Battle CDs, it would add even more time. Now, I will say, you can skip the intro animation, but only after you've beaten a Battle CD once. I find this kind of annoying because the intro animation is pretty much the same for all of them, so I feel like you should always be able to skip it. Anyway, though, Battle CD 1, let's begin. Pidgeot vs. Tropius. Now, on the first turn, you can pretty much do whatever you want, but you want to go for Double Edge first, just to damage this thing a bit. Even with a crit, you won't actually be able to one-shot the Tropius, so you'll always be able to be taught the Battle CD's lesson. Tropius is flying. We have to win this turn or we lose due to time, and our Double Edge won't hit. We are faster, so it'll still be flying by the time we attack it. We have to make use of a fairly obscure game mechanic here. Some moves can hit Pokemon while they're in the air during moves like Fly. Gust is one of those moves, so if we use Gust here, Gust hits the Tropius despite it being in mid-air. Also, Gust does double damage when it does hit a flying Pokemon. And that clears the Battle CD, so that was pretty simple. Now, the first time you finish a Battle CD, you'll get an item reward. You won't see that here, because I've already finished this Battle CD before during the main playthrough. So yeah, we get nothing else. One thing to note about Battle CDs as well is that if you lose one, you have the option to get advice. Make sure you don't mash A on this screen though, otherwise you'll go straight into retry. So if you press get advice, well, I mean, that's pretty normal advice, but that doesn't really pertain to this one that much. And this pretty much directly tells you how to win. Not all hints are as obvious as this one, some of them are a lot more subtle, and some of them aren't that helpful at all. For completeness sake, I'll be showing the hints you get for every battle CD. So, what have we learned from this battle CD? Some attacks can hit Pokemon during the semi-invulnerable turn of Fly. Specifically, in Generation 3, the moves Gust, Twister, Whirlwind, Thunder, and Sky Uppercut can all hit Pokemon in the air. And of these moves, only Gust and Twister do double damage when they do so. Though in practice, this really isn't worth it. Both moves only have 40 base power, so even doing double damage, that still only brings them up to the average power you'd expect on a decent moveset for a Pokemon. In fact, Thunder at its base power does more than a double damage Gust or Twister. Still, you should always be aware of these moves if you're ever using a Pokemon with Fly. The first turn of Fly is called a semi-invulnerable turn, and the semi is there for a reason. What's changed since Generation 3? Well, a few more moves that can hit Pokemon during Fly were added. Hurricane, Smackdown, and Thousand Arrows. And the last two don't just hit Pokemon that are using Fly, they negate the effect of Fly entirely and knock the Pokemon back to the ground. Oh, also Fly itself had its power raised to 90 starting with Generation 4. Generation 5 also added the move Skydrop. While it has some differences from Fly, all the moves that can hit Pokemon during Fly can also hit Pokemon during Skydrop. Not exactly a change, but also relevant, anything that can hit a Pokemon using Fly can also hit a Pokemon using Bounce. Next up, Battle CD number 2, Skill Overpower. Use the foe's power to your advantage. Let's see what we're dealing with here. We have a Wartortle and we're against a Drowsy. We have Counter and Miracle, meaning that we can't do any direct damage to the opposing Pokemon. We have to counter their moves. Also note that Wartortle is holding a Persenberry. This is mainly to minimize the impact of luck on this challenge, because confusion can randomly cause confusion, and the chance of that happening twice in one battle is fairly low. So as you can see, this Drowsy has a physical attack, Strength, and a special attack, Confusion. So, we'll have to play around that. Battle CD 2, let's go! We're at the Oasis Pokespot again for this one. And Wartortle's model looks pretty bad in this game. But anyway, let's begin. This Drowsy will always alternate between its moves. It'll use Strength first, and then it'll use Confusion. Counter does double the damage that you took from a physical move back to the opponent, and Miracoat does the same thing for special moves, so let's go ahead and switch over to Miracoat, because Drowsy will also be switching up its moves. Something to note too is that speed doesn't matter in this encounter, because both Counter and Miracoat force you to move last. This makes sense because the moves wouldn't work otherwise. We've taken almost half of our health and damage, however, they've taken almost double as much as we've taken. That's the use of these counterattacks. If you can predict the foe's moves just right, you'll be able to hit them back for massive damage. A pretty simple battle city overall. Remember that even if the Drowsy gets a critical hit against you, you'll be doing double the damage of that critical hit back to them, so if anything, critical hits are beneficial as they let you finish this CD even faster. And so, because that is the first time we're finishing this battle CD, we get an item reward. Super Potion. Yeah, the early battle CD rewards are not that great. They kind of expect you to do these early on in the main story. Here's the hint for this one. They basically just explain how Counter and Miracoat work. The real thing you need to know for this is that the opponent always alternates between physical and special, so you should alternate Counter, Miracoat, etc. What did we learn here? Mainly, that Counter and Mirror Coat are very powerful moves, but they require prediction to use well. Especially against Pokemon capable of running mixed movesets. If you use Counter and your opponent goes for a special move, you've wasted your turn. But if you make the right call, these moves can really turn the tide of battles, especially if used on a Pokemon that isn't normally expected to carry them. What's changed? Well, Counter and Mirror Coat themselves didn't change much over the generations, apart from the fact that starting in Gen 4, they can't be copied with Mirror Move. But the introduction of the Focus Sash item in Generation 4 gave rise to a new strategy called Counter Sash. This usually involves leading with a frail Pokemon with a Focus Sash and the move Counter, and baiting your opponent into attacking them. Weavile is a common user of it. The Focus Sash guarantees you'll survive at least one hit as long as it's not a multi-hit move, and you'll take so much damage that Counter will almost always be a 1-hit KO back. Another benefit of this strategy is that if your opponent is aware of the Pokemon that commonly make use of it, they'll be hesitant to attack them. A new counter move was also introduced starting with Generation 4, Metal Burst, though this one works a little bit differently. It can counter both physical and special attacks. But the cost is that it only does so at 1.5 times damage instead of double, and it works at normal speed order. Meaning that if you're faster than the opponent, the move will fail. Unlike Counter and Mirror Coat, which strike at decreased priority. Things get a little bit more complicated with Battle CD 3, Exploit Seams. Hit foes while they're locked into moves. This one you really want to check first. So our two Pokemon are a Quagsire and a Ludicolo. The main moves we want to pay attention to here are Dive on Ludicolo and Dig on Quagsire. We're up against a Vileplume with Solar Beam, and a Skarmory with Sky Attack. So, both of our opponents are using moves that take one turn to charge and then execute. Both of our Pokemon have moves that hide the user, letting them evade attacks for one turn, and then attacking the next turn. But what you want to pay attention to here is the speed stats. Notice how Quagsire is slower than Vileplume, whereas Ludicolo here is faster than the Skarmory. Here we go. So, let's begin. He sends out Vileplume and we send out Quagsire. Normally this would be a terrible matchup. Grass-type moves do quadruple damage to a Water-Ground type like Quagsire. However, if we use our moves just right, this Vileplume will never be able to hurt us. Because we are slower than the Vileplume, we have to use Dig here. It'll charge up on its turn, and we go underground. Since Vileplume is faster, on its attacking turn, it'll go before we come up from being underground, so we'll always miss. And our Dig attack will do some damage to it. Make sure you keep spamming Dig here, and this fight will be pretty smooth. In fact, it's impossible to lose. If any of these Solar Beams actually hit Quagsire, we'd probably be taken down in one hit. However, because we are slower than the Vileplume, it'll never be able to hit us if we keep using Dig. Next turn, though, is when we need to vary our strategy, after the Vileplume goes down. So, Vileplume should fall to this Dig here, and our opponent is going to be sending out Skarmory. Skarmory is faster than Quagsire, but Dig won't be able to hurt it, and yeah, we're not getting through Skarmory with normal moves, so we have to switch out here, but switching out here serves an even more important function than letting us switch to something that does more damage, because Ludicolo is faster than the Skarmory. If we tried this same tactic of going in a straight one-on-one fight and just spamming our two-turn move, the Skarmory would actually get its attack off while we were vulnerable. We don't want that. Instead, we'll make sure the Skarmory uses its charge-up turn while we're busy switching. That way, when Ludicolo comes in, the Skarmory will be ready to unleash Sky Attack. And because we're faster, we'll be able to use Dive to hide from it just before it goes off. See, Sky Attack now misses. Also, this will do quite a lot of damage to Skarmory on the attack, because Dive is special in Generation 3, and Skarmory's special defense is not very good. Okay, yeah, if that wasn't a critical, this would have taken one extra turn. But you get the idea. Ludicolo being faster than Skarmory means you have to make sure that it uses its charge up turn while we're switching. So for completing Battle City 3, we get a Great Ball. Let's see the advice we get for losing here. That's really not helpful at all. Yeah, remember I said that some of the advice is kinda useless? This is one example of that. You need to pay attention to the speed stats of the Pokemon in this battle. The lesson to be learned here is simple. Two-turn moves can be easily exploited. While in this CD you use your own two-turn moves to get around your opponents, there is an even easier way to do it: Protect. Or simply switching out to a Pokemon that resists or is immune to the move. For this reason, and the fact that these moves blatantly telegraph what type of attack is coming out next, charge-up moves like Sky Attack and Solar Beam are very rarely used in competitive play unless you have some way of circumventing the charge turn, like Sunny Day for Solar Beam. Or in later generations, making use of a significant new item, the Power Herb. This is a consumable held item that lets the holder negate the charge turn of one of their moves once. It's actually very relevant to everything in this Battle CD because it affects not only moves like Sky Attack, but also semi-invulnerable moves like Dive and Fly. Some Pokemon do make use of this for niche strategies, like Hawlucha using Power Herb with Sky Attack, not only giving itself a powerful no-charge attack, but also activating its Unburden ability. Battle CD number 4 is a bit of a themed gimmick battle, but it still has a lesson to teach us. Plusle and Minun, the best of friends in play and battle. Checking here, we have a Plusle that has a Magnet and 2 attacking moves, Thunderbolt and Thunder. Notice how it is slightly faster than Minun, but Minun has very slightly better defenses. Minun is mainly for support. He's got Helping Hand to boost the power of Plusle's attacks, Rain Dance to make Thunder have perfect accuracy, and Thunderbolt when he needs to do some damage. Also remember, Plusle and Minun have the plus and minus abilities, so they get a 1.5 times multiplier to their special attack while they're on the field together. Against them, Miltank with just Earthquake, and a Tropius with Swords Dance and Earthquake. So, as you can see here, while this has unlimited turns, that's kind of a lie, because if either of these Pokemon get Earthquake off, it's curtains for our adorable duo here. Our goal here is to prevent them from using Earthquake at any cost. And with that, we need to use some efficient tactics. Also, this will be our first double battle CD. Here we go, Plusle and Minun versus the Earthquakers. We're in the Rock Pokespot this time. And our opponents are the Miltank and the Tropius. Now this one, you kind of need to know what the AI does in order to really succeed, so it may take a bit of trial and error. If both of them use Earthquake on the first turn, this would be impossible to win, but the Tropius always goes for Swords Dance first. So, our target is that Miltank. We need to get rid of it on the first turn or we lose. One Thunderbolt alone is not enough to KO it, however, with the boost from Plus and Minus and Helping Hand, it just might be enough. You could also go for Thunder if you want to go for a riskier option, but if Thunder misses, then you basically lose. Thunderbolt is enough to KO with a Helping Hand boost, there's no real reason to risk Thunder. And as you can see here, Tropius goes for a Swords Dance. Now, Tropius needs to go down this turn, because if it doesn't, we lose, because it will Earthquake us. Thankfully, Plusle and Minun are both pretty fast, and for this, I like to just go for a double Thunderbolt onto it. So here's Plusle's Thunderbolts. Does a little more than half. Minun's special attack is only slightly lower, so Minun should be able to finish it off. And that's that Battle CD done. But if you don't get rid of Miltank at the first possible opportunity, you will lose instantly. That's the main thing you need to figure out here. It's a lesson in threat elimination and target priority. So for completing Battle City 4, we get an antidote. The rewards are still not that great, but that Battle City is pretty fun to me. Oh yes, and now that we've finished Battle Cities 2, 3, and 4, new Battle Cities are available at the shop. They're now selling 9, 13, and 17, so let's go ahead and buy those. The advice for this Battle City is kind of interesting. It explains a facet of Helping Hand that might not be obvious just from the move's in-game description. Helping Hand always goes first, ensuring that the recipient always manages to get a more powerful attack off. You also need to note that this goes even before priority moves, so you can Helping Hand boost a quick attack or extreme speed if you want to. There are two main lessons to take from this CD. The first is that Helping Hand is a very valuable move in double battles. It's a move that people often overlook because it has no use whatsoever in singles. But in doubles, Helping Hand gives up the user's turn to multiply the power of its ally's move by 1.5 times. On a more passive Pokemon that wouldn't be doing much damage anyway, this is a good way to make productive use of its turn. Or, as was the case with this battle, when you really need that extra power to get a Pokemon off the field as soon as possible. It's also great when applied to spread moves like Rock Slide or Heat Wave. The other lesson is about double battling strategy. Sometimes you'll find there's a Pokemon on the opponent's side of the field that's a major threat, so you may want to focus down on it to eliminate it as fast as possible. Successful application of this, like in this Battle CD, can save your team from disaster. But in multiplayer double battles, you'll need to be very careful, as your opponent will likely be expecting this, and might have a Protect ready to waste your turn. What's changed? Nothing regarding those two things I just said. Helping Hand has stayed the exact same in every generation. It's always had +5 priority, the highest priority possible on a move. However, something marginally related to this CD is the abilities plus and minus, and they did change in later generations. Specifically, Generation 5 made it so that plus or minus boost you if your allied Pokemon has either plus or minus. It doesn't have to be the opposite polarity. Also, several more Pokemon now have access to these abilities. Battle CD 5. Offense is the greatest defense, but can defense be the greatest offense? This has always been one of my favourite Battle CDs. It's simple and pretty silly, but I've always found it hilarious. So we've got a Blissey up against a Medicham. The Blissey has the stats you'd expect of a Blissey: great HP and special defense, terrible attack and defense. Its only attacking move is Egg Bomb, which is going to do pretty much nothing. But the main move you want to note here is Protect. We're up against a Medicham. Now, due to the pure power ability, Medicham's attack stat is effectively 130, not 65, because it's doubled. But its moves are Fire Punch, Ice Punch, Thunder Punch. Remember that they are all special in Generation 3. And High Jump Kick, which is very much physical and will very much destroy Blissey. Unless you remember a certain aspect of the move High Jump Kick, and figure out the way that it interacts with a certain other move. Let's go. Pink Blob versus Meditating Powerhouse. Who will win? Got a simulated version of the ONBS building here. Now, for the first few turns of this battle, it doesn't really matter what you do. This is one of those where the AI just alternates between all of its moves in turns, so it'll go for its 3 punches first, which will do barely anything because they're special in Gen 3. Speaking of doing barely anything, the amazing feat of a Blissey using a physical attack. Yeah. Even though Blissey is one of the few Pokemon to learn Egg Bomb, it's a terrible move on it. Never ever teach Blissey Egg Bomb. We're really just stalling until Medicham tries to go for High Jump Kick. One more turn and then it will happen. You actually don't want to use Reflect here. I'm just going to go for Soft Whirl because why not? Now, if this paralyzes, it could cause this to get derailed. Well, especially derail this is if Ice Punch freezes. But you can always just restart Battle City if that happens. So, it's the 4th turn now. Medicham is going to use High Jump Kick, we need to use Protect. Now, regardless whether this hits or misses, this is going to happen. Yep, instant KO! That's pretty amazing. For completing Battle CD5, we get a Paralyze Heal. This advice is both helpful and not helpful at the same time. It's helpful in that it tells you that High Jump Kick can damage the user, and how that damage works in Generation 3, because it's different in later generations. It's unhelpful in that it doesn't explain that High Jump Kick hitting a protecting Pokemon counts as it missing. The lesson to be learned here is simple. If High Jump Kick hits a Pokemon that's using Protect, the user takes crash damage in the same way they would if High Jump Kick missed. In Generation 3, the crash damage is equal to half the damage High Jump Kick would have dealt if it had hit. So, against a Blissey, a Pokemon with massive HP and terrible physical defense, Protect spells instant doom for anything using High Jump Kick. High Jump Kick is one of the most powerful fighting type moves available, so it's usually considered worth the risk. At least in singles. In double battles, you don't see Pokemon carrying this move that often, mainly due to almost every Pokemon having Protect, so it's far more of a risk using it. What's changed? Quite a lot, actually. High Jump Kick went through a series of buffs throughout the generations, increasing to 100 power in Generation 4, and a massive 130 power in Generation 5. But the way crash damage works has also changed. Starting with Generation 4, if High Jump Kick targets a Ghost type, the user takes crash damage, in the same way as they would if they hit a Protect. In this case, the damage is equal to half the user's maximum HP, and, starting with Generation 5, all crash damage deals half the user's maximum HP in damage, as opposed to half the damage the attack would have done if it had hit. In practice, this didn't really make crash damage any more or less dangerous. The situation with Blissey is one of the very few times in Gen 3 that crash damage could potentially one-shot you. More often than not, crash damage would have been pretty close to half your max HP anyway. What this does mean though, is Protect is now always something High Jump Kick users have to worry about, regardless of what Pokemon they're targeting. No matter how much damage your High Jump Kick would have done, Protect is gonna cost you half your max HP.